Good morning and welcome to another edition of Carpod Church. As the fuller moon wanes into the dawning light and the town of Bray begins to rise and surface from its slumber, you are very welcome as you join us for another edition of our exploration of what it means to be church, particularly in a time of great trial and tribulation. Of course, when we talk about trial and tribulation, we really talk about our current circumstances and the challenges we face, which are very genuine and very real. But in the reflections back to the days of the early church, those trials were literal. We have Peter and John, who have been brought before the Sanhedrin, the leadership of their faith, of their church. They have been brought possibly to the house of Caiaphas. The very last time they would have been there would have been at Jesus' trial. And it must have been quite daunting and maybe even quite terrifying to be back in those places where there was an association not just of the ultimate demise and resurrection of Jesus, but also of their own limitations, their own failings, their own struggles. What had happened was Peter had denied Jesus 3 times, but John also must have been struggling in those familiar surrounds because he had not done anything. He knew people within the inner courts. That's how he and Peter got in, and yet he did nothing. Like the other disciples, they all literally ran away. So they weren't going to run away this time. This time they were speaking boldly. They were teaching the leadership of the temple that it was the name of Jesus that transforms and changes everything. And something had changed within them in those intervening weeks. And it would have only been weeks since the trial and death of Jesus, the weeks and months. So we have this gathering, we have this trial, we have this questioning and an uncertainty among the leadership of the time as to what to do, how to deal with these upstarts who insist on invoking the name of Jesus. And there's a moment within this process where they are brought down, sent out of the room to allow the leadership to discuss what on earth they're going to do with these people. And we might have this idea that they were sitting outside on benches waiting for a decision to be made, but actually more likely they were brought downstairs. Now downstairs was into the dungeons, and I've stood within the hollowed out caves, if you like, beneath what would have been Caiaphas' house. And while when we were there it was full of light and very reflective and very evocative light, back then it would have been dark. It was a very deliberate effort by the leadership to intimidate these fishermen and these upstarts, and they would have been left stewing really in the dark, cold, damp, fear-filled place, not sure what was coming. Don't forget, last time the result of a trial like this had been the death of Jesus. So somewhere in the back of their minds they could have been struggling with this, but we know really that they had a confidence. Something had changed, and I think what changed, and the key, if you don't mind me using this image, both for the fact that they were locked up, but also for the unlocking of them, the key this time was actually because they had the Spirit of God within them. Nothing could shake that. They were really on fire for God. They had a determination that this time they weren't going to let Jesus down. This time they were going to be strong and courageous. We're very fortunate. We don't face trials and difficulties like this. We don't face this type of intimidation that others face right around the world at this moment because of their faith. We might be mocked, we might be ignored. Those things we can probably cope with. But to face trial and possible death is a very difficult thing, and it's one that we know both then and now that the Spirit and presence of God transforms those situations so that sometimes, even in their darkest hour, there is still singing, there is still faith, and there is still hope. When our times of trial come, may we too find that strength, that key that unlocks our fears and frees us to serve God in whatever way He calls us. Have a good day.